Hi, and welcome to the Captioned Life, a show for the most casual and dedicated fans of comics and a member of the Comic Watch family. I'm your host, Sean. Join me and discover what the world of comics and graphic novels have to offer. From one-on-one interviews with industry professionals, roundtable discussions with passionate fans, and reviews on the latest comics, TV shows, and movies. Now let's dive right on in. Hey everyone, welcome to the Captioned Life, and we are celebrating 100 episodes. And to celebrate with us today is former co-host and co-creator of the Captioned Life Show, Kevin Stahlecker. Kevin, how you doing, man?
Man, I am doing fantastic. I am excited to be back on the show.
Oh man, I'm glad to have you on, and it's been a while, and you know I really miss having you on the show. As much fun as I'm having doing the show now and everything, and all the stuff I'm doing, I absolutely miss having you on as a regular co-host for a number of reasons. One, like this. When we got on to do the show, that was like one of the few times we actually get on Zoom or do a video call to actually talk to each other since we're in different states. But it's just so good to have you back on. And the nice thing is we actually worked out for another episode for you to join, I think later on in June, where we're going to be talking about Superman Birthright as well too, right?
Awesome, yeah.
Yes.
I love this. I love the big boy in blue.
We all love him. So we are celebrating our 100th episode. And what I have to clarify here a little bit is that even though this is our 100th episode, like technically it may not be our 100th episode, right? And the reason I say that is because we've had a long journey of how this show started. And for a while we were doing a series of bonus episodes. So for example, you probably remember this, where we were trying to figure out a way for us to do TV shows and movie reviews for the show. But the problem was I went and saw them, you know, the night it came out. And because of your schedule, you usually weren't able to get into the theater for like a week or two. And so go ahead. Yeah.
I still really wish, like, part of me is just like exhausted last week. And I was like, you know what? I'm an adult and I can make decisions on my own, and I can go see Guardians of the Galaxy on a Thursday night. But like, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I was asleep by 8 o'clock that day because I was so exhausted from work. So tomorrow, I'm going to go see it tomorrow.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that, because I'm not a high school teacher anymore, but I used to, and I remember those days when I would come home at 4 o'clock and I would pass out by 5 because I was so exhausted from teaching. So I totally get that, and I don't fault for you for that for any reason whatsoever. But it just made a really interesting scenario for us where I started doing these bonus episodes where I would review movies and TV shows on my own. And so when you go through our podcast, it actually, if you count them up, it'll be more than 100 because of those bonus episodes. But since we've been numbering our episodes, this is officially number 100. So to celebrate, I thought what we could do is we could do a few things. Kevin and I will kind of look back at how we started the show and where we're at now. And then at a suggestion of one of our colleagues from Comic Watch, Miriam Pereira, she had suggested us talk about our top episodes. And so we're going to talk about that and our favorite episodes that's not on the list. So there's probably going to be some overlap initially, but we're going to specifically talk about the ones that's not on the list, but we really enjoy. And then we're going to read some of the reviews that people left on the show since we started this. And then we will end it with the comics we're reading and the giveaway that we've been promoting for the last couple of weeks as well, too. We'll select a winner tonight at the end of this episode. So let's go ahead and jump into doing a history and look at how the show got started. So, Kevin, I don't know if you remember this, but we actually started the show in 2019. And the way we started it was, it started with 3 of us, right? It was you, me, and James Caudell, and we connected on Twitter through one of our mutuals, Tim Smythe, who is an educator that used comics for teaching history. And I can't remember exactly how it got started, but we all were like contacting each other, and we were, tweeting at each other. We said, we should start a podcast about comics. And like, that's how it got started. That, you lived in Texas. I live in Indiana. James lived in Kentucky. We've never met each other. in person at all. And so we spent like the next few years doing this podcast without ever actually interacting with one another.
And
I was really, yeah.
At the time, I had never listened to a podcast because I just thought it was a flash in the pan, and I thought they were kind of lame. But I also wanted friends to talk to about like pop culture and comics and stuff, and so like that's why I was down.
Yeah.
I remember you and I especially hitting it off really quickly, because like one of the first conversations we had like via Twitter, you were at Disney World.
Yeah.
And I was like living vicariously through you, because that's a shared love that we have.
Oh yeah. I remember vividly when we were having those conversations on Twitter. I was telling my wife, I was like, yeah, there's this guy named Kevin who's like commenting on all my tweets about Disney World. And I was like, this is actually a lot of fun. And so it's really cool that in this day and age, you can actually connect with people and make friends, and you don't have to be in that same physical space. And I feel like, you know, even though we're half a country away, you know, we've always said that you and I are, you know, pretty much best friends in terms of like, you know, we talk to each other all the time. Even though you're not regularly on the show anymore, we still talk to each other all the time and kind of check in on each other and things like that. And so, so it's really
send each other memes.
Yeah, we do that all the time. All the fun GIFs and TikTok videos and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's been a blast, in that the way we got this started just kind of blossomed into this great friendship, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Were you going to say something?
I was going to say the other thing that we share a lot of is pictures of Rogue.
Yeah, it's more of like I send you pictures of Rogue because I know how much you love her.
I've got a collection. Like, I want somebody to come out with like a trading card set that's nothing but Rogue trading cards.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure if you go to Etsy or something like that.
I don't know. In the early '90s, Wolverine had one, and it's been 30 years, and I just want the Rogue trading card set.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, if anyone's listening or watching, if you know of any or want to create any, let us know, and we'll get that to Kevin for his birthday later on this year.
That's what I want.
Yeah. And I also forgot to mention, so as I may have not said at the beginning before, but we're actually celebrating by going on YouTube Live. So for those who are listening to this as a podcast episode, this is being recorded Friday night, May 12th. And this is going to be all raw, all unedited. So usually I do some edits at the post-production to kind of clean things up. With this being live, I thought this would be just a fun way just to kind of capture everything and just, you know, record it all once, and then I'm going to post it just like how it is, basically, that we're going to do it here. So as you're listening, if there's going to be any hiccups or if there's any fumbles or anything like that, that's because we are live on YouTube, and we don't go live very often. I've done it a few times, but this is the first episode that I'm really doing where we went live. Kevin, I don't know if you remember this, but we did try to go live a couple of times before, but I remember it was a frustrating process because the way I was trying to do it at the time is that Streamlabs, which is the OBS I use, didn't have a way for you to join on a live recording like what you're doing now. Like, I gave you a link through Streamlabs to be able to join us right now, but at the time we didn't have that. So the way I was trying to do it was run my OBS and run Zoom at the same time, but because those are two, you know, high volume bandwidth suckers, basically. Like, I remember the Zoom was lagging so far behind that you would say something, and then there would be this, you know, long gap of like silence, and then you and I would both kind of chime in at the same time, like stumbling, and we were so frustrated with that whole experience. So this is kind of nice that we're not having that now.
It's a big improvement.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So we got started in 2019, and
I'm doing great, Sean.
I know you just mess with me now. I should have saw that coming too. So that's how we got started in 2019. And I remember when we did our first episode was talking about Avengers Endgame, because the movie just came out and all three of us were really excited about it. Yep. And we talked about it for so long that we actually ended up splitting it into 2 episodes, because I think it ended up being like a 3-hour conversation. So pretty much just as long as the movie itself. We might as well just did a like retelling of the movie.
We could have done the DVD commentary track.
Yeah. But what's funny is, like, we didn't have a plan on how we're doing this. We just said we want to do a podcast. We didn't really like come up with a strategy other than, you know, we will get on whenever we could, basically. And so we did the first episode about Avengers Endgame, and then I don't think we came out with another episode for another 2 months. And so I think for the first year of us doing the podcast, we were literally just kind of doing it randomly whenever we could get on, but there wasn't like there wasn't a frequency of like when we did it, basically. So when Apple or Spotify asked, like, how often do you release your episodes? It was like, not often.
It's like Netflix. Like, are you guys still podcasting?
Yeah.
Like, yes, I'm still podcasting. Leave me alone.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that for a while, and then when we got into the year 2021, we made the conscious choice of trying to be a little bit more consistent with our episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we decided that we were going to try to put episodes out twice a month. So not every week, but I think we said like I think we started off with saying like the 1st and 15th of every month, and then I think we ended up switching to like the 1st and 3rd Sundays of every month or whatever. So so we started doing twice a month, and then we also did some bonus episodes, and then James had to roll off of the show, so it just ended up being you and me.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell like the quality of the shows really kind of picked up because we were being consistent. We were kind of having a game strategy in there. One of the things I really enjoyed about this strategy, though, is that you came up with something with the episodes that I really love that I just can't do now because this is a one-man show. And so I'm like doing everything on my own. So I just don't have the time or capacity to do this. But when you're on the show, you did this thing for every episode that we did, or at least when we have guests on the show where we play these different games, right?
Yes. And that's probably the thing when I look back on my time on the Captioned Life, that's the thing I'm probably the most like proud of and my fondest memories, because it gave me a chance to be creative, but also there were a lot of episodes where we just laughed our butts off because we were enjoying ourselves so much. And I don't know, like I maybe missed my calling to be a game show host.
Well, they were a lot of fun. I know all of our guests said that they really enjoyed it. I think there may have been like one or two who said like, yeah, we could do that. And like, clearly they weren't.
They weren't prepared.
Yeah. Like they weren't quite sure how to do that. And what's funny is I'm looking in the comments on the YouTube live right now, real quick. Molly, who's been a guest on our show, Molly Farnsley, said happy 100 episodes. Kim from the ODPH podcast said, let's go. It's party time. And then JT from, from Beyond the Fandom said, it's time, what's up? I was about to call it his old show, but I remember they had to switch names. But Molly said that she absolutely loved the games that she played because when she came on the show, she was on as a guest talking about her webcomic, Ever Present, and it was like kind of a fantasy based webcomic. And so you actually came up with a game where we had to pick our fantasy name based on like a few things. And I can't remember what my name was, but I remember they were hysterical. I need to go back and listen to that because that was a lot of fun. But it was just like little things like that. That was just, it was really creative, and I enjoyed that part of the show, and I really missed that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. I kind of remember that part of the equation was like the place you were from was the setting of your favorite TV show.
Yeah.
And so two of us ended up from Scrantonville because we were big Office fans.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But yeah, so all those little games were a lot of fun. I think, they were a hit with us. They were a hit with the guests. They were a hit with a lot of our fans. I say fans, there's like 5 fans, obviously a little bit more than that, but I make it sound like it's bigger than what it is. But I remember one of my buddies from Comic Watch, Kev Rossi, had listened to one of our episodes, and we're going to talk about that here a little bit, but he actually did something that was inspired off the game that we did for that episode. And so it was really cool to kind of see how those games would end up being like a core part of these episodes. And like I said, I really miss that part of the show. It's still been a lot of fun, but I'm hoping that at some point in the future, when your life kind of settles down a little bit and you can, be a regular co-host, that we can integrate that back into the show because that's a lot of fun.
I will start planning the game for the Superman episode right now.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
And, here's the thing: if you have the capacity, every time you come back on as a co-host, let's do a game because I think that's just still a lot of fun. If you love doing that, let's do that.
Awesome.
Awesome.
We honest to goodness, I loved playing those games with our guests. So like
Mm-hmm.
if anytime Molly wants to like come on and like do another game, or some of the other people that we've had as guests that we played games with, I would love to jump back into that pool.
Yes. Well, and Molly actually just said her character was from Pawnee Shire.
That's right.
I got to go back and listen to that episode. That was so much fun. So yeah, so that was 2021, and then last year, you and I had talked, and because of a lot of things that were happening in your life, with your career and with just life in general, we had decided that it probably made a lot more sense for you to be able to kind of step back and join the show whenever you can, which you've
Mm-hmm.
had. Like, I think we made a plan for you to come back, at least a couple times a year. One, to kind of do like a year review where we talk about like all the things that happened the past year, and discuss our thoughts on those things. But then like other episodes like the Superman Birthright one we're going to do. And so we talked about having you come back as a guest host, but allowing you to be able to have that freedom, so that way you don't feel stressed out about doing this like every other week, because I knew this was stressing you out, trying to balance all these things. It's a lot of work. Like, for those who don't know, Kevin and I didn't do this to get paid. We both have full-time jobs.
Right.
Kevin does a lot of stuff for his job, plus, the things that he does for his kids. Same here. I do stuff for Comic Watch. I'm also part of the staff for Nerd Initiative. I have, my family at home as well, too. Like, we're very busy people. So this podcast is really a hobby that we do in our own free time. And so it's a lot of work to, do this out, in addition to all the things that we're doing. And so we just kind of talked about, it probably made sense for him to come on when he could, and I would just continue on with the show. And that's why I decided I wanted to ramp up to weekly episodes, because I just wanted to do something every week. In addition to that, the Captioned Life Show ended up joining the Comic Watch family as well, too. So we're part of the Comic Watch, which, if you don't know what that is, that's a website that I do comic reviews for, and it's all volunteer-based. It's, not clickbait that you see some of the other websites do, but it's a really great group of people, and so we're officially part of that group. And so so that's kind of the history of the podcast. That we started 2019. It was a slow start, but then we started ramping up a little bit, and now this year, being the fourth year in production, we're hitting our 100th episode today. So with that,
And that means we can be syndicated now.
I know. Oh my gosh! Right? Yeah. Like, I'm just
That's
waiting
where the big bucks are.
I'm waiting for the TV show, the TV stations and the radio stations to start hitting us up and be like, yeah, we want to start putting you on our schedule now.
Okay.
So since then, I want to kind of show people like, what we've been, where our numbers at in terms of, downloads, social media presence and stuff like that. Because when we first started this, we didn't even think about social media presence. We were just like, we had our Twitter accounts. We were just going to tweet it out. But since then, we've kind of grown our accounts to do not just the podcast show and the episodes, but also, creating content, stuff like that, for, the comic reviews that we did. I know you and I talked about doing some blog posts about like maybe Disney World for some of those, events that came up and stuff like that. And so we wanted to do a lot more resources and be a source for other things, and kind of go beyond the show as well. So by the numbers, since we started, we've actually, if you know anything about podcasting, you have to host your episodes on a website or a podcast hosting site, basically, right? It's like where you're going to store all your audio files and all that. It was hard for me to get all the numbers figured out for the episodes that we're going to talk about a little bit later, and figure out like which ones were our top episodes, just because we went through, I think, 4 different hosting sites before I landed on what we're on now. But we, first started with Anchor, then we decided to move away from that because of some, problems and issues that we've seen with some of their terms and agreements. And then we went to SoundCloud, and then that got a little bit expensive and didn't have some great statistics analytics for us. And so we switched over to Podbean. And then I found out about this other hosting site that was like completely free and gave me pretty much the same statistics as Podbean. So I switched over to that. So we went through like 4 different hosting sites. And so I did count up all the numbers from when we went from all those hosting sites. And as of right now, we have over 7,100 downloads from all 100 plus episodes that we've had so far. Facebook, what's interesting is that we have a Facebook page, and we did have one when Kevin was a co-host of the show, And then, when we decided to just have me run the show, I told him like I probably wasn't going to update Facebook, so just go ahead and get rid of that. And then last month, for whatever reason, I decided like, yeah, maybe I should get a Facebook page for the show. I couldn't get the old one because Kevin had deleted that and there was no way to retrieve it because I told him to delete it. So I just started one like last month, and we're actually already up to 193 followers, which I think is really impressive. So, and by the way, sorry, Molly just said that she's down for. I think she's talking about coming back on the show and doing this again. So, but yeah, so we're at 193 followers. We're just having a Facebook page for about a month or two, maybe a month and a half actually. Twitter, we have 898 followers, which, again, for somebody who's doing this as a hobby on top of everything else that they're doing, I'm really happy with these numbers because we're not like social media marketing strategists at all whatsoever. We don't know what we're doing when we're tweeting these things out, posting these things out. We're just like, here's something, throw it out there. Let's hope it sticks, right? So 898 followers on Twitter. I'm really happy with that. On Instagram, we have 644 followers right now. TikTok is our biggest following. And that is, we have 4,818 followers right now on TikTok, which I absolutely love. And I've met a lot of great people on TikTok and I've just been having a lot of fun doing that stuff there. Our YouTube channel has 412 subscribers, and then Twitch, which on Twitch, I just play video games on that. It's not anything podcast specific. It's just a way for me to kind of say like, let's have fun, like doing something that's kind of related, but not really. And so Twitch, I just use for video games. And that's I call it like my after hours Captioned Life Show, because that's one where I'm like, you have to make sure that people are 18 to join, because I kind of get a little bit more loose with my language on Twitch. Here, like I always tell people, like this is a PG-13 show, but if you go over to Twitch, I absolutely get very angry when I'm playing Fortnite or Rocket League, and will definitely, cuss up a storm from time to time. But we have 37 followers on Twitch. So, I mean, overall, I didn't do the math ahead of time, but that's about over, 6,500 followers on all those social media platforms. So like I'm very happy with how we ended up, and I think with this being our 100th episode, it's a really great turnout for what we've done, especially for somebody that we didn't have like any plan going in. We don't know what we're doing social media wise. We didn't have like, a strategy other than like, let's just, kind of talk about what we want to talk about. I'm really happy with this turnout. So,
oh yeah,
Kevin, what do you think about all this, kind of hearing these numbers and seeing this and all that? What's your reaction with this?
I couldn't have imagined us making it to 100 episodes at the beginning, to be honest, because like I said, I thought podcasts were a flash in the pan. Once we really got into the groove of it, and when I know some of our episodes are excellent, and we were switching things up between doing interviews with creators and just the conversations that you and I had. They meant a lot to me, and like looking back on them, I still feel like quality wise, creative wise, they're excellent bits of content there.
Right.
But it's amazing to see like what it's grown to. And I will say that as far as my involvement with the whole thing, is that it's one of the things I love to do the most was to come on our show. The problem is that my life was so busy. It became something that like it was one more thing that I had to prepare for.
Right.
And unfortunately it doesn't pay the bills. And so I couldn't prioritize the podcast where I felt like it needed to be prioritized in terms of quality, because like my motto is anything worth doing is worth doing well.
Right.
And it just for my sanity, I had to take a step back. But I've been impressed with everything that you've done since August, when we kind of like decided to switch things up. I think that the stuff that you're doing now, especially the little bits on TikTok and like the Instagram reels and the YouTube shorts, like that stuff like pops up into like I watch YouTube on my family television a lot. So like if I'm browsing YouTube, and there's a YouTube short with your face on it. The kids always want to, they say like, oh, what's Mr. Sean talking about this time? So we a lot of your views on those come from repeated watchings at my house.
Oh, I love hearing that.
But
Oh,
no, like it's I really really enjoyed everything that we've done together over the last couple of years, and everything that you've done since.
thank you. Yeah, and like I said, I enjoy what I'm doing now, but I absolutely love it when you and I were doing this together because one, I mean, that gave us a chance to kind of get caught up and see how things are going on with each other. You know, we don't get on Zoom or a video call now like what we used to,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a lot of fun just kind of, you know, catching up with you, talking about things that we haven't, you know, talked about in a while, and doing the show with you was just a lot of fun to be able to have someone that you know going to be on the show regularly and that you can rely on, and knowing that you have a good charisma with that person. Because, you know, doing it week by week with a new co-host, you always kind of run the risk of having somebody that you might not like, you know, mesh well. Not that, you know, they're you know, not a good person or anything like that. It's just more of like their style is not your style, and so it might not like you know, hit up well. But luckily I've not had that yet. I'm sure there'll be at one point where it might happen. I'm like, oh, you know, that's okay. But you and I have always had that great kind of relationship where we kind of rib each other and kind of go off on
Mm-hmm.
off of each other's vibes and feed off each other's enthusiasm and everything. So I am looking for the day once things die down for you to be like, let me come back on the show and let's do this again, because I am ready for you to jump on whenever you're ready.
Yep.
You know, no pressure or anything like
So
that,
this
but
is,
it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
yeah, um okay, so I'm looking at like the episode list,
Uh huh.
and of the first 64 episodes were the ones that I was a part of, and I had to miss one of them because of something that came up like
Right.
last minute. You've
Right.
been a part of all of them because since the beginning you've been the sound engineer that's recorded everything for us, because that was a little bit out of my depth. I probably could do it now because I've learned so much just
Oh yeah.
from talking to you. But I've since done um a few more. I did the best of,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And then we did one that was the video game movies.
Yeah. That was a backup episode that you and I recorded, I think, back in January, and I remember saying like, oh yeah, I'm these would be really good to have on hand just in case something happens
Yeah.
like down the road. And I'm thinking like, you know, not until like the end of this year, but I had to use it like 3 weeks later because I had strep throat.
Okay. I couldn't remember if we recorded one more. If
We
if
did.
we
Yeah, we got one on backup in case I need to use that one again.
what's it about? Do
That
you
one
remember?
was it was I think Marvel and DC sidekicks.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Okay. I was like, I felt like, so this marks my 66th Caption Life
Yes.
episode, and with more hopefully to come. But like, if you're a baseball player, you hit 1 out of 3, you're in the Hall of Fame. So like, I've been part of 2 out of every 3 episodes, and it's something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, you should be. Um, Before we get to the next part, I want to talk about. We've had some more comments that come through. Let's see here. JT said, "I'm a follower. He follows us on all the social media. He's a great friend of the show, and he and I are good buddies." He also said Fortnite and Rocket League, talking about the games that we play. That I will stream on Twitch from time to time. Those are the two that we'll constantly play together. Molly said, oops, following on Facebook now. We have 194 followers on Facebook now. Thanks, Molly. And Kim from the ODPH podcast says that he also follows as well, too. So we appreciate everybody that's following us on all the social medias. It's really, it's been a lot of fun, you know, getting to know other people as well and being able to interact with people who also are interested in the same things as we are. But we really appreciate all the support that people have been giving us.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy is that we became friends and we started to do this podcast. And every time we interviewed somebody, I don't say every time, like a high percentage of the times that we interviewed somebody, we had such a great time that I immediately wanted to be friends with those people.
Right.
Um, like Molly was definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I really loved getting to talk to it with David Pepos, and we had like an extended
Yes.
conversation with him like after we stopped recording. And Ibrahim Mustafa. There was
Mm-hmm.
like so many people that we talked to that like we would like it was just such a great experience that we learned stuff about ourselves and about them and about comics and things like that. It was just a great experience. And um like when I get up in the morning and I go to school, like the number of people that I can like truly share the like deepest parts of my like passions with is limited. But coming here
Mm-hmm.
and having the space where you could like talk about all the things that you get excited about, and the person that you're talking to is just as excited as you are, and that was just an incredible feeling.
Yes, I agree. Definitely. Um, John's Comics with Kids just jumped in the chat and said, "Congrats on 100 episodes. Thank you very much." He also says that David Pepos is good people, and yeah, I mean we totally agree. He's been on the show twice now. We've had only a handful of people that's been on the show multiple times, and David's definitely been one of them. And he's just like you said, we've met so many great people from doing this show. And I know I've learned a lot from doing the show as well too, not just like how to podcast and all that, but I've told this story multiple times. I'm sure that people are familiar with this, but I got away from reading comics when I got into high school, and then back in 2016, I came across Marvel Unlimited app, and then that's when I started to get back into comics again. And so one of the reasons why I was really excited about doing this podcast was it gave me a chance to go back and learn about the things that I miss and kind of get caught up on not just the stories, but how comics work and the ins and outs and stuff like that. And this podcast has allowed us to interview people on the show to kind of talk about the writing, the art, the editing. We've had editors on the show and learn a little bit more about their processes and what it's like to do that sort of thing. And so it's been a lot of fun doing that. One of the other things that we've done as a result of this podcast is that we've also been going to conventions as well too. And so between the two of us, I know that you and I both went to PopCon and Dallas Fan Expo together.
Yep.
PopCon was the first one we went to together. It wasn't the first time we met in person. We met in person at Universal Studios when we found out that we were both going there at the same time. So that's when we first met. But then you and Madden came to Indianapolis for PopCon, and we watched Black Widow together because that was the same weekend it came out. So that was a lot of fun. And then we went to that convention, and then not last year, but 2 years ago, I think.
No, it was last year.
Was it last year? Okay,
It
I
was
couldn't
last year,
remember.
right before we ended up making the change.
That's
It
right.
was
Yeah.
yeah, it was hard for me. I remember it being hard at the time because like it had already started to like set in that I was gonna have to like talk to you about that, but we were having such a fun time hanging out together. It was
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. Yeah. So it's so we went to Dallas Fan Expo together, and I say it's a lot of fun. It was definitely a lot of fun. Saturday, I will be honest to say that I didn't have as much fun in the main vendor hall because it was so packed with people.
yeah. I this is the second time that I have sworn that I will not go to Dallas Fan Expo on a Saturday,
Yeah.
and I always end up going back because something pulls me in. And I really it's in a couple of weeks, the first part of June, and I really want to go back, but only for Sunday. The problem is that like we've got a family reunion thing going on that
Right.
ends on Friday,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to be in. It's near Dallas. I don't want to be tempted to be in Dallas on Saturday and be tempted to go there
Yeah.
when all I really want to do is go on Sunday. But
Mm-hmm.
Dallas also has like a really sweet like video game museum.
Oh,
And
that's
so
right.
like
I remember you telling me about
that
that.
we
Yeah.
was something that we thought about we might want to do, um but yeah, like I can't go to Fan Expo on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Not
I
until they open like use the entire convention center, because it seems like they have it all jammed into such a tight space where it would just make more like you could even in the vendor hall you could
yeah.
see more of what everybody has to offer if you're
Mm-hmm.
not having to look past 60,000 people to see it.
Yeah, they crammed a bunch of stuff in there that made it hard for people to walk by, because that was one of the reasons that I think like after 20 or 30 minutes I was like, I'm done, I can't stay in the vendor hall, because
And you can see over everybody.
I could see over everybody, but the problem was I kept bumping into people. Like, it wasn't even just like I was walking like a few steps and then I hit somebody. It was like I was shoulder to shoulder with everybody trying to get around that whole hall. That it was just horrible experience. But I'll say that if I were to go back again, I would probably spend Saturday just going to the panels instead of trying to go into the vendor halls, because they had some really cool stuff. But I think one of the coolest things that we got to do at Dallas Fan Expo is that we actually had a session where we did, I think it was MCU trivia, if I remember correctly.
Yes, we did. We hosted our own trivia panel.
And what I really loved about that was twofold. Is one, it was a lot of fun doing that, and I'll be honest, is that Dallas Fan Expo, they had a professional setup where somebody was running the cameras and the audio, and they filmed the whole thing. And so we actually got to get that video and put it up on our YouTube channel, but it looked really good. And so I thought that was really well done and really well thought out. But what was really cool is that we had that room almost was filled up with every seat in that room. And we had so many people afterwards come up and tell us that it was one of the best trivia panels, and one of the best panels they've ever been to as well too. Like, we had so many people saying that how much they enjoyed us doing that. And I think, again, that's because you and I have such great personalities and feed off of each other really well, that I think people really caught on to that same kind of enthusiasm that we had as well too. So it was a lot of fun doing that.
And that's something that I would love to do again sometime. I just need to get to a better work-life balance, and then I'm all for like going to cons and like and shout out to Madden, because he's always there to like help us with like the trivia stuff. But like he's my son Madden is so good at it, and we did this when he was younger too with cosplay, where he stopped entering the like cosplay contest because he got invited to be a judge of one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it didn't feel fair to be a quote unquote professional and then still go compete against the kids that like, he's also really good, and he would help write the questions and stuff like that. And it feels like it's something I'm supposed to be doing. Like, so if everything is right in the universe, I'm hosting some sort of like trivia or quiz show, and it's just a really, really fun experience. I think we got influenced, or we got inspired by somebody that had hosted one, I think at PopCon.
Yeah.
And they had also done like a superhero spelling bee. And we were like, these are really, really good ideas. We should have these things at every single convention. And we were like, well, we're going to this convention, we can at least have it here. And it's something I wish I could do tomorrow if we were up for it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to do that. And I think it's one of those things where it's just a lot of fun. Like, I can't really, say anything more than that, but just the planning into it and the enthusiasm and the energy you get from people participating in that, and being able to feed off of the energy of people who also love the same things that you love. It was just a lot of fun doing that. And like I said, I think, that was one of the better panel experiences I've had from doing all these, because I've done a few other panels, but that was actually a lot of fun doing that at Dallas Fan Expo. Even though you and I have said like we've sworn off going there on Saturday and everything, that's actually something that I really enjoyed doing.
And we did our panel on Friday or Sunday.
I think it was
Sunday.
Was it Sunday?
Yeah, because we were in street clothes. Like, we had dressed up.
And I think it was like early afternoon or something like that.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, people like us, like people who are like really, really into something, whatever fandom it may be, deep down inside, you kind of think that you're the best, and you don't mind putting yourself out there to prove that you know more than everybody else. And hey, just like other things that can be a vice, like trivia can be a dangerous mistress. but like
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun to go out there and to play, and even when you're on the host side of it, to get excited,
Mm-hmm.
to get to see people get excited about your questions and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, if you want a challenge for trivia, you put Madden in charge of it, and he will make it challenging, because that
Yeah.
was one of our episodes. Was we told him that he could be the quiz master for that episode, and it was fun because, or not fun, but it was funny because at the beginning we were all excited and thought like this would be a lot of fun to do this, and then I think by the 10th question, it was like so insanely hard and insanely specific that you could just feel when you're listening to it, you can hear the energy got sucked out of us. And I think, we didn't even finish the game. We're just like, yeah, we're done with this because he made it so difficult. So if you want it challenging, you got to tap into Madden, and he'll make it
go back
challenging.
and listen to that episode, because it's really hilarious to hear how bad we were at it, though.
Oh, yeah. I know, because we're just like, oh my God. Well, yeah, it's Molly said knowledge is a dangerous mistress, Kevin 2023.
Yeah.
So that's going to be quote of the year. So that's kind of our show in review. So let's talk about some of the top episodes that we've had on the show. So we're going to discuss, again, the episodes that probably had the most plays. And because we went through different hosting sites, it was hard for me to kind of find out like which ones were the most played. So what I pretty much did was I put together the top 3 episodes from each platform that we've had, and I just kind of rambled them up or scrambled them up in no particular order or anything like that. And so the list of these are the top episodes from the various platforms that we've had in terms of plays. And then after this, we're going to talk about the favorite ones that we've had on the show that weren't the top episodes, but ends up being, but still is a favorite of ours. So beginning with number 7, some of our most played episodes are actually like early on in the process, which I thought was really interesting. But the first one is number 7, a triage interview with Philip Seavey. Do you remember that interview?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was a really good guy. The comic that he was making at that time was a comic about I think it was like a nurse or something like that, and it was really cool because I think his either his girlfriend or his wife at the time, I can't remember, was the inspiration for it, and it was a really good conversation to have with him, kind of learning more about how he wrote it and drew it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he was everything on that book.
Right. Yeah, and so it was really cool to hear him talk about that experience. Another top episode of ours was when I did the review for Hawkeye episodes 1 and 2, and that came out. I'll be honest and say that it had a lot of plays, like even a couple days after it came out, and I was really surprised by it. And it was one where it was just me kind of talking to the microphone. I didn't have anyone that I was having discussion with. It was more like, here are my notes. I'm just kind of sharing it out. And so I was really surprised and really, really enjoyed the fact that it had a lot of plays. It seemed like a lot of people liked it. I must have done something wrong because every episode after that kind of like went down a little bit in terms of plays, not by much or anything like that. But again, I love the show Hawkeye, and I love the character Clint and Kate Bishop for a number of reasons. And I love what the show did for a number of things with, looking at giving Clint kind of a more introspective and giving him more of a time in the spotlight to be able for us to focus and appreciate him as a character in the MCU, because he's never had his own movie or TV show up to this point. What they did with the deaf and hard of hearing community, a lot of things. And so I think me being really excited about that and the things I loved about that really came through in that episode. So I think that was a highlight for me there, is kind of seeing like how that was kind of a risk for us in doing some of those things, because those were bonus episodes, and that actually ended up being one of our better played episodes. And then another one is a more recent one. It's episode 85, Jewish Representation in Comics with Sasha Kaplan. And this is really good conversation. We talked about, how Jewish people are not represented well in comics. And the irony of it is that the Jewish community are the ones that really built the foundation for what the comics that we have now, right? Like when you look at, the creators of Superman, when you look at, Stan Lee and so many, of the pioneers for comics were Jewish, and there's still creators in the comics industry that are Jewish, the characters they are still kind of lacking with that. So it was a really good conversation to have with Sasha about that. We talked a little bit about your man Magneto as well too, and talked about with every year passing, like how do we really figure out, part of his identity is being a Holocaust survivor and everything like that. And so like, how does that continue on
Yeah.
in the comic story? And I think you and I
That's
have
one
had
of
that
the things.
conversation
That's one
too.
of the
Yeah.
things I'd be most interested in seeing how they introduce Magneto to the MCU
Mm-hmm.
is because we're so far removed from that. I don't think you can. I don't think you can give him that backstory. Which,
No.
which when you think about like a character's motivations,
Mm-hmm.
like some of the clearest motivations there's ever been established in a character. So
Right. Yeah. Another one was number 8, American Carnage with Brian Hill. So this was early on where we were just kind of getting started, and Brian Hill is a major name in the comics world, both for writing for like DC Comics and a couple other
mm-hmm,
publishers, but also is a writer for television and I think
mm-hmm,
movies as well too. I think he may have done a
mm-hmm,
movie or two. So he was actually a big name for us to get him like really early on. The show was really impressive.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Uh,
remember that was a big get for us.
mm-hmm.
And because he had written some episodes, excuse me, he had written some episodes of the Titans series,
That's
and
right. Yeah.
he had American Carnage had just come out,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean that was one of my favorite books that I read that year. And then some of the stuff that he's done since then has been really fun and really exciting. He'd be one that I would be super interested in like catching back up with.
Oh yeah, same here. And I'm sure he'll probably, if we reach out to him and ask him, I'm sure he'll
Mm-hmm.
love to come back on the show because he was a really great guy and really a nice guy to talk to. The next one was one that you and I were on, and this was one that we didn't have planned, but because of the circumstances that happened, we said we need to have an episode and talk about this. So whatever we had on the schedule, we postponed because this was the comic book Mouse and the McMinn
Mm-hmm.
County School Board in Tennessee, if I remember correctly. And
Mm-hmm.
this is the school board deciding to ban the book Mouse from the school libraries or the school curriculum. I think it may have been both the curriculum and the
Mm-hmm.
library. And we had guests Betsy Gomez from the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund on, and then Jill Gerber, who was a previous guest on the show, who is a school librarian as well. And so we got both of their perspectives about what all this meant and where we're going. And honestly, like we're still seeing
Yep.
this happening with not
And
just
the
books but
school
comic
district, the
books and
school
graphic
district that I
novels.
work, the school district that I work in has had several books come up that have come before the board and have led to school board. The discussions at the school board meetings have led to school board meetings that start at 6 that have gone till 1 in the morning
Mm-hmm.
because of it. And it's just one of the things. It's what's going on in society right now, and I think it's probably one of the most important episodes that we've recorded. If you were going to take a handful of them and put them in a time capsule, that would
Mm-hmm.
definitely be one of the ones that would need to be preserved.
Right. Yeah. And if I remember correctly, I think that was actually, again, because of the timeliness of everything and how important this conversation had, I think that was the one where we actually went live for that as well too. I
Mm-hmm.
think we said that we were going to go live because this was we decided to go live I think 2 or 3 days after the news broke out about that, and so it was kind of a quick turnaround. But we wanted to have a conversation about that and talk about the the future state of not just comics and graphic novels in education, but education as a whole and
And
society.
and that book is a life-changing book. Like I
Yes.
had already been aware of Mouse and
Mm-hmm.
like knew what it was, but had only ever read it in like excerpts or whatnot.
Right.
Um, having just wholly consumed it over the course of like 2 days in preparation for our discussion,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very very moving book, not just about like the Holocaust, but also about the like how we connect with our parents and the stuff that gets
Right.
lost from generation to generation.
Yeah.
um it's one of the reasons. So like essentially, his family history is um like told through that story, like the
Hmm.
it's passed down from his dad to him.
Right.
And my son and I were driving on a mini road trip. We had to go to the other side of Houston, so it was about a 90-minute drive a few weeks ago, and he was having me tell him ask me about who this grandparent was, and essentially everything I know about that person and whatnot. And he's like, Dad, you should really write some of this down, because some of it would be like a great story.
Hmm.
And I've thought about it from time to time, but like for me, the most important thing to do is to pass it down to him. So.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I honestly haven't heard the book until it came out, and or not when it came out, but then when the news broke out, and the
Mhm.
first thing I did was I got a digital copy because I wanted to read it, and I read it in like I think one day, maybe 2 days.
Mhm.
100% agree in that it's much more than just somebody's retelling of what they experienced through the Holocaust, but it's also, you know, for those who don't know, the author, wrote this, with about his father who went through the Holocaust. And so all this was just him taking the stories that his father told him, just like what you said, Kevin, and put in a graphic novel form. And it was a very powerful, very moving story. Molly put in the comments here, agreed. Mouse changed my life. I'll make sure my kids read it when they're older already. Same here, especially with the Holocaust, coming up to being, it's going to be about 80 years since it's happened,
Mhm.
right? Because it was it was back in the 1940s, so it'll be 80 years, and so it's been enough time where we're not having hardly any, if at all,
There are ver
survivors.
Yeah, there are very few survivors left, and the further we get away from it in history,
Hmm.
um, like this, just for reference, one of the stories that I told my son was like that. My grandfather, my grandfather was born in 1935,
Hmm.
or 1936, and he had two older sisters.
Hmm.
And in the middle of the Great Depression, his mom's first husband walked out on the family
Right.
and left her with two young daughters, and those girls ended up having to go to a group home or an orphanage, um, and because she couldn't afford to feed them. And
Right.
then the my great grandfather, when she remarried, when she met my great grandfather, my grandfather's dad, the very first thing that they did was he went and picked the girls up so that they could like all be a family.
Right.
And it's like, Madden tried his best to be able to understand it, but we're 100 years removed, almost 100 years removed from that. And unless you have a deep knowledge of like the time and the context of it, it's hard to understand what all of it
Hmm.
means. But like the emotion of those stories, through that story or through Mouse, or things that are important to like pass down from generation to generation,
Right.
um, the emotion of is what carries it. So
Right.
uh, I
And
told him that he has my blessing when he becomes a famous filmmaker to turn it into an award-winning film.
yeah,
Yeah.
no pressure there, right?
Well,
Um,
it's what he wants to do with his
yeah.
life. So we shall see.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And yeah, and the book is just it's very powerful for a number of reasons because it goes beyond just retelling of one's experience through living through that horrific tragedy, but also it's a very introspective way of looking at society and our relationships with, and not just like parents and children, but also generations as well too. And so to see it get banned because of one, when I read through the article of what happened, it seemed like they were going off of what people had told them and not having read it themselves. So it's like I felt like I was more informed than the school board to make a decision on that. But the two things that they had brought up that they thought were problematic was one, they said that there was nudity in it, which was yes, because of what happened at the concentration camps. It wasn't anything sexual or anything by nature, by
Right.
any means whatsoever. And so it's like that. Let's be honest, like the Bible had a lot more, explicit
Mhm.
things than that book did, So it was an unfortunate thing. Lauren just jumped in the chat from your friendly neighborhood comic show. She said, "Hello, Kevin, an HOA president. I am technically the HOA president of this neighborhood that she had created. It's a really cool community that they have. It's, you need to check that out. If you're not familiar with it, I will put a link to that, to the friendly neighborhood comic show, so that way you can check it out. But it's really cool. We have a lot of fun with it. I'm the HOA president. I just pretty much wreak havoc. Like, they're always like, oh, yeah, we're going to have somebody join the show. I'm like, I didn't see their application come through, so they can't be on the show. Yeah, so moving on to some of the other episodes that were, some of the top played ones. Number 84, Superman, Son of Kal-El with Bethany Pope. This was actually the first episode where I did a true comic review. So you and I, when we jumped on the show, we usually talk about like characters in general and not a specific issue or run. This is the first run that we did, which was like 18 issues of this series, which if you haven't read this, Kevin, I think you really enjoy it. There's a lot of really cool things about the story. It's written by Tom Taylor. The art in it is really good. And John Timms did a lot of the art for this series, and his art is fantastic, and it's just a great story. But I'm really glad that this was actually one of the top played ones. And for people who are listening, I don't actually go in and look at how many plays these episodes are getting. I kind of see it from time to time, but I don't go in and look and see how well they're doing it, because we're just doing it for fun. And so it's really interesting to see how some of my favorite episodes are showing up as the top played one. And I think that says, volumes about like what people are liking, because this was something that was a lot of fun to talk about. And the fact that this was the first one to do a review of a comic run was just really cool to see this being one of the top ones here. And then I'm glad Molly is in the chat, because one of the other top played ones was her episode number 40, Ever Present, which is her webcomic that she has. That's a fantastic story. Learning about not only her story of Ever Present of that comic that she's written, but her personal story of how she didn't even started drawing comics until she was in her mid-20s, and that was really inspiring to hear that, she wasn't somebody that started like really young and then, was cranking out stuff, as early as 17 or 18, like you hear some of these other artists are. She started teaching herself how to draw, in her 20s, and she does some great stuff. I hope she knows how to draw butts now, because from
I was gonna say, we need to have a follow-up episode with Molly.
We do.
So that we can talk about like if she's more comfortable with drawing butts now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I gotta say, and you and I had talked about this. Molly was a great guest on the show. She was a lot of fun, talking about her stuff. Molly says you're making me blush. Her stuff was really great. And it was a fun conversation we had. The game that we talked about earlier with her was a lot of fun. And I think you and I even talked about, if we ever wanted to have another like host, if she was interested.
Yes. Molly's my top choice.
Yes, Molly was.
If we ever went back to having a 3-person team.
Yes, and I think she's probably finding out about this for the first time now that she's listening to this. But yeah, I mean, we had that conversation. Like, if we were going to add somebody, like we would love to have Molly on, because she was such a great guest. But just, if you go listen to that episode, it's just a lot of fun. You can tell that we all really vibed really well with each other. So it's definitely, I'm glad to see this on our top performing, because if it wasn't top performing, it definitely showed up on our favorite episodes that weren't on this list. So so real quick with the comments, Lauren from the Friendly Neighborhood Comic Show said that this is a real cool recap of the episodes. I love it. Thank you very much. This was a suggestion from a friend of mine from Comic Watch, Miriam Herrera. So this has been a lot of fun talking about this. Molly says, I've been crocheting 3D hearts while listening to this episode, and they kind of look like buds halfway through, so maybe.
One of my students had some crocheted hearts in class today, and I was like, oh, those are really cool butts.
Yeah.
And she was like, they were supposed to be hearts, and I was like, they look like butts.
They can be both. And then our next one is episode 74 Black Panther Wakanda Forever review with Karima Horn, who's also known as the Blurred Girl. You've probably seen some of her stuff. She's been everywhere. She's a writer for, I think, Sci-Fi. She's been on some of the major events from Marvel and DC Comics. She's always done like freelance editing and writing and stuff like that. She wrote a book called Protectors of Wakanda. That's a fantastic book where she got to write about the Dora Milaje and took a lot of inspiration from the comics and create like a journal for a novitiate to kind of go through and kind of read like the history of the Dora Milaje and the history of Wakanda. And it was a really fantastic book. And so she got to talk about that a little bit on here. It was really cool because some things that she wrote actually ends up being not referenced to necessarily, but the things that she talks about in her book also ended up being mentioned and talked about in the movie as well too. Like Midnight Angels was something that she had talked about in her book, and then when the movie came out, we actually got a little preview of that. I don't think they officially called it Midnight Angels in the movie, but for those who had followed either her book or the comics, they recognized that suit was Midnight Angels. So that was really cool, and she was a great host to have, or a great guest to have as well. And then the last one of our top performing is episode number 82, Toy Photography with Matt Ma. If you don't know who he is, he has a huge following on TikTok. I actually ended up following him when he was first starting out, and his photography with toys is so fantastic. It looks so real, and he does a lot of videos kind of showing like how he gets it set up and then what the end result is. And I got to tell you, like a lot of it just, you couldn't tell they were toys because they looked really good. So I told him that I wanted him to have him on the show to talk about that. And it was just a lot of fun to kind of learn about how his journey kind of led him to that. So
awesome.
So those are our top performing episodes. Real quick, Molly said,
I'm really glad to hear that they weren't all without me.
No, not at all. Yeah. Well, again, Kevin, the episodes where we had games, like our personalities when we vibe off each other, I think are the best performing ones because people enjoy that. Like I can't tell you how many times I've heard people said that, like the reviews they leave are usually ones that they're talking about when you and I are together.
Awesome.
Because people are always talking about like how Sean and Kevin's vibes are really great on the show. And so
I think one of the great things was that I was always coming up with the games, but I never talked to you about it ahead of time.
Yeah.
So you never knew what to expect.
Yeah. There are a couple of times where you're still creating it while we were recording the episode, because I hear you like the keyboard clacking in the background while we're talking to the guest.
But no, it was always a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. So let's talk a little bit about our favorite episodes that didn't make this list. And the first one that was on here is our favorite superhero hideouts. And this is the one that you had on your list. And I absolutely love this episode as well too, because we got to just kind of geek out about some of our favorite things. And this is some of the things that people really enjoyed about the show, is that you didn't have to be an avid comic book reader to enjoy the content or the episodes that we were making here. And I think this is one of those episodes where it really highlights that for everybody, that you didn't have to read comics to know, the X-Mansion or the Batcave or the sewers of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because people, got that from other mediums like TV shows and movies and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people really enjoyed this episode for that reason. And I know we did as well too. And we talked extensively about the Power Rangers headquarters being inspired by some building from a Jewish college out in California, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
I remember one of the things I remember about that episode the most, because it was one of the very first ones that you and I did in 2021, I guess, like on our own, that we had this whole system set up. We were really streamlining everything. We were starting to hit our stride with it all. And then we started having this conversation where we were recording, and we realized we probably should have like talked a little bit about it beforehand because like all of our favorites were the exact same.
I know.
and so we were like, we'll just geek out on these, because it was like, we kind of have this system now where like if like we're gonna do 3 talking points, right? Like we're gonna do like, let's say our favorite villains with our favorite villain costumes, right? And you'll pick your 3 and I'll pick my 3, and we won't have the conversation, but we will be like, okay, who are your three? And
Right.
we would just say them so that if we had any overlap, we could then like adjust
Right.
accordingly.
Right.
We always had like an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there were several episodes starting with that one. There were several episodes where we were like, we picked the exact same thing
Yeah.
like so often.
We
And that's
talked
like,
about how we were probably separated at birth because of
yeah,
all the
like
things that we had in common. Yeah.
that in Step Brothers were like, did we just become best
Yeah.
friends? And that's the way I felt like every episode we recorded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here. The other one that was on our list of favorite episodes that, and again, I think the ones that we're picking here are ones that are favorite episodes that weren't on necessarily the top played list. So there's some that we absolutely love that also end up being on the top list as well. So these are the ones that we think, should get more love from our show because we absolutely love them. So the next one here is episode 57, Retroactive with Ibrahim Mustafa. And what's funny is for those of you watching this on YouTube, you can kind of see our show art change over the years. So when you see some of the early ones, like it was really bad because none of us knew how to do some of this graphic art. And so I feel like by now I have a pretty good handle on how to do some of this stuff and make it look good. But like at the very beginning, it was kind of rough. Like at the time I was like, oh yeah, this looks great. And then looking back on it, I'm like, that was terrible. I don't know why I thought that was really good. But our interview with Ibrahim Mustafa was a lot of fun. And he comes up with some really great comics that he writes all the time. So this one is for humanoids. The other one that we had him on for, I think, was also for humanoids, called Count, which was a future version of the story of Count of Monte Cristo. But he was just another phenomenal guest that we absolutely love. He was a lot of fun. I think
my biggest laugh, like the thing that I still think is the funniest thing that we've ever stumbled upon.
Yes.
Was the one of the very first games I created for the one that we did with Count. And I had pitched this idea where I was gonna, because Count is a public domain character that he put his own spin on.
Right.
I said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna challenge everybody. I'm gonna give you a public domain character and then a setting. And you're gonna have to come up with like the backstory for this character. And I think I had given James, you have to do the Wizard of Oz, but it's set on a Martian like space colony, right?
Right. Yeah.
And in the process, we realized that Total Recall is is Wizard of Oz. Story?
Yeah.
and without missing a beat, Ibrahim was like, "There's no place like home."
Yeah.
and we all fell out. We all fell out laughing because it was so funny.
Yeah, it was spot on. Like he had the accent down. It was so out of the blue and hysterical. And yeah, I agree. That it was funny that you brought that up because that's exactly where my mind was going to.
Yeah,
of bringing that up but that's just an example of like how much fun we have with all of our guests. But Ibrahim was definitely one of our favorite guests because he's very personable. He's very friendly, very kind. One of the nicest people that we've ever interacted with, but he's also hysterical. For that, that was one of the examples of like just how funny he was. And that was like right on top of his head, right? So it's not like something like he thought about or planned or anything like that. And so it was just hysterical.
And this is back when the games were very, very like, I thought of it the day of.
Yeah.
And so we weren't prepared for like how great that would be.
Right. The next one that was on our list is actually two of the same ones. We had talked about making this into like either some sort of sub-series or if we ever got to a point where we wanted to make like a second podcast series, because you can't just do one, right? You always have ideas for doing a second or third one. But one of the series we thought about doing was actually an idea that you had that I thought was genius, and I think a lot of people would enjoy, are these series of Was It Great or Were We 8? And so we had two of these episodes. The first one was episode 64, Was It Great or Were We 8? Blockbuster movies in 1991. And basically we just looked at the movies that came out during that year, because you and I are not the same age. And so this was kind of like split between, when we were 8. So like you would have been 9 at this year and I was 7 at this year. So we decided to do 1991. So that way we were both kind of doing the same movies, but we pretty much talked about what were some of the, biggest movies that came out that summer, and does it still hold the test of time? or was it because we were 8 we thought it was great, like the the title said. We also did the same thing for holidays for episode 50, where we looked at the things that we got when we were kids and looking back at it now,
like Christmas presents.
Yeah, Christmas presents, right? Like we got Christmas presents, the toys that we got, and looking at it now, like, was it still awesome that we had those, or was it more of like, I loved it when I was 8 because I was 8 years old? I think in that episode we came out with like, no, we want those toys back.
Yeah,
we loved all of them. Yeah,
the overwhelming majority of those toys, because we went through like, I made a list, just a rapid fire list of all the toys that were the number one Christmas sellers from like 85 to like 2000.
Yeah.
And there was only like 2 or 3 that were like Pokemon cards that we were like, yeah, we don't care about that. Everything else we would have chopped off a pinky finger to like, just to be able to play with it once again.
Yes.
I do have some more ideas for Was It Great or Were We 8, so that we can get around to recording again. I'd love to do Was It Great or Were We 8 for like Saturday morning cartoon shows.
Yes. Or just Saturday morning shows, because you had the Star Trek original series that showed up on Saturday morning, Batman 1966.
Oh yeah,
like all those shows. But yeah, like Sonic the Hedgehog was one of those things. Reboot, you remember Reboot?
I remember Reboot. and then I've always wanted to get our wives on the show, and maybe we could convince them to do Was It Great or Were We 8, like 90s teen heartthrobs. So that we could like talk about like our like the girls that we had a crush on and the guys that they had a crush on. And that would be, I think that'd be another fun one.
Yeah, we might have to like rephrase it to like, was it great or were we like 12, or because that didn't really happen. Like, I don't think anybody really.
Yeah,
had,
I wasn't.
I
mean, yeah, but still, it fits the motif.
Yeah.
I mean, I will talk for a straight half hour about Kelly Kapowski. On my own. So
I think Sarah would be down for that, as long as we didn't have a video version for it.
She doesn't want to be on the video.
No, and I get it. Like some people just like, I just don't want like a video of me out there, and I'm okay. Like I've always been somebody that I would be in front of the camera and do whatever. She is not one of those people, and so I think she would definitely be okay with doing like a podcast episode of audio, but she'd be like, please don't have me on the video.
Backup. We could always have like, I'd say we could have like Molly on as a backup.
There you go.
But we're so old, like it would be, was it great or was I born yet for Molly?
I wonder if she's still watching, if she heard that. I'm going to see what she says. Yeah. So those were, and again, I love those themes so much that I would definitely love to see this be like either a spin-off series of the Captioned Life into its own podcast show, or just like its own show of Was It Great Were We 8, because you and I talked about like how we looked online, we did a Google search, and like nothing comes up with this phrase, and it's really surprising because there's a lot of like Netflix shows and other things out there that talks about nostalgic things when we were kids, and I think this is a gold mine for us. So yeah, when you come back on the show, like when you come up with another idea for Was It Great Were We 8, we definitely need to record that and get that on there, because I think that'd be a lot of fun. Yeah,
absolutely.
The next one that we had on here that we both really enjoyed is our interview with the one and only Michael Uslan, who's the executive producer of all the Batman films. If you're not familiar, hold on. Molly said, I heard that. It's in all caps too. Good. But yeah, so we have Michael Uslan on the show, which if you don't know who he is the executive producer. He owns the filming rights to Batman. So any Batman film that was created since 1989, he has top billing as executive producer. He's involved with all that stuff. We got him on the show, which was amazing because he is a huge player in Hollywood. I had a connection with him because he went to Indiana University, which is where I have a connection with as well, too. So I kind of reached out to him or his agent, kind of, appealing to that side of things. And he actually, what's interesting is his whole history is that he created the first college course on comics at Indiana University when he was a sophomore or junior. So he has a really cool history about his time with, related to comics in Hollywood. And he had a book coming out at the time called Batman's Batman, and it was just all the stories he had from his time when he's worked in Hollywood, and it wasn't all related to Batman, but just all the stories that he had. And it was like I read that book in 2 days, like it was something I couldn't put down. And he had a lot of fantastic, interesting stories, but the man could tell stories like no one's business. I remember you and I both said that we could sit there for another 2 hours just listen to him like tell more stories. And you and I are both talkers. Like if you haven't figured that out by now, we're probably we're like an hour 20 into this recording. You and I are both talkers, but that episode right there was, we didn't talk hardly at all because we just listened to his stories because we were just so awe-inspired by his stories. So we absolutely loved that episode, and we loved talking to him. Hopefully we can get him back on the show sometime, maybe, for a special Batman episode again or something like that. But he has some great stories with that. And another favorite of ours is episode number 19, Becoming the Seattle Superman with Jonathan Bell, who is a huge social media star. He is known for wearing Superman costume around Seattle and taking photographs, and his photography is amazing and stunning. But I love this episode because he was the one that really, first of all, he's one of the nicest guys as well, too. He was so nice and kind. And whenever you talk to him, either on the show or reached out to him on social media, he's just very, just a very down to earth kind of guy. But he was the one that really inspired me to get into cosplay because of his story. And so I absolutely attribute me and my son getting into cosplay to him because he was really the inspiration for that. Yep. And last but not least, I think you'll probably agree with this, Kevin, is one of our favorite ones is episode 46, Batman. This is one where we just talk about anything Batman related. And we also talked about how on the show, we didn't plan this, but we always end up talking about Batman one way or the other. And I think we have maybe about 8 episodes on the show out of 100 that's about Batman. And like no other character has had that on their show to this extent. And so this was just pretty much talking about our love for Batman, what we love about the character, anything like that. And then you did a game, just like with the other episodes, and we did a Mad Libs version of Batman. And
I wrote a story,
yeah,
and it was just off the wall ridiculous. And I left blanks and then asked you for the words to fill it in.
Yeah.
And what we got out of it was, I don't know if the version that you edited the sound effects into is online, or if that's something you just shared.
I think it's in the episode. The sound effects are in the episode. I even did like a little video representation, like it for like I think the first maybe minute of it, because I think it was like a 5-minute story. But I did a video visual of it. But the sound effects were in the episode itself. So if you go back and listen to it,
it's
an audio drama.
It's chef's kiss, yes. Like it's like it was so good after we finished, and we were laughing so hard that like we get off the chat and close the Zoom, and I sit here, I'm thinking, dude, should I do this full time? Like, is this what am I the best in the world at this? Like, is this the best thing I do? Like, I'm a great dad. I'm a really good teacher. I'm an excellent husband. But like, man, I'm really good at this. Like, yeah, that one went to my head a little bit. I mean, and we didn't even get a lot of feedback. I mean, I don't remember getting a ton of feedback at the time. The thing that just stands out to me the most is how hysterical you and I thought it was. Because we could not stop laughing.
Well, and here's the thing is even for the only ones that thought it was hysterical, like that's all that matters. Like, I don't care if no one else, it was hysterical. But with that being said, I was talking about this earlier. One of my colleagues from Comic Watch, Kevin Rossi, listens to the show, and he listened to this episode, and there is a part in the Mad Libs where somehow I said that the villains from Gotham City look like a grown-up version of Kevin McAllister from Home Alone. And Kevin Rossi loved that so much. He thought it was hysterical that he decided to Photoshop some of the Batman villains. I think it may have been Batman Beyond or something, but he took some of the Batman villains from like not the main villains, but like the gangsters that's from the animated show. and put Kevin McAllister's clothes over them. So like a red sweater, green army pants, all that stuff. So they actually look like Kevin McAllister, but with the mohawks and sunglasses that they're wearing and stuff like that. And he sent that over, and I died laughing. First of all, it was our first fan art, and I'm like, yes, we made it.
Someone drew something.
Yes,
yeah.
Based on what you did. But it was so funny because I was not expecting that. So when he sent that to me, I was dying laughing because like to visually see that as an interpretation of it, it was hysterical. And last year, I wanted to take that and create Christmas tree ornaments with that. I couldn't do it because the programs I was using like was really weird about it. So I'm hoping this year I can do that. But I really want to take those images and send that out to people as gifts from the show this year, because I thought it has a lot of sentimental meaning in the fact that somebody liked our show and liked what we did with this episode, that they created something. And so I thought it was really cool to be able to, celebrate that way, is to take that fan art and give that as like Christmas ornaments to for people to put on their tree. So, so that one was a lot of fun, and that is all of our favorite episodes that weren't on the top list of played episodes, but we still think are golden for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're like I said, we're about hour 20 into the episode. I had a segment on here where we kind of read some of the reviews. There's actually quite a bit of reviews. I don't think I'm going to want to go through and read it right now, just because I want to respect your time. I want to respect everybody else's time that's watching us here as well, too. If you're curious about the reviews, we do have them on our website. If you go to thecaptionedlife.com, there's a tab that says show reviews, and you can actually, you can leave a review on our website. So if you want to leave a review, it doesn't have to be through Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, but you could definitely do that. You can actually do it through our website. But on that same page, you can see other reviews that people have left. And again, like they're nothing but great things that people have been saying about our show. I think we're doing something right if we get a lot of people saying that they really enjoy it, and we're not getting a lot of, hate. The first time that we get like a 1-star rating from somebody, that's when I know we'll made it, because
someone just says we suck.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's, if you want to see those reviews, go to our website and you can definitely see that. What I wanted to do next is kind of, remind people a couple of things, and then we'll do the comics we're reading, and then we'll do our giveaway. Again, this show is a part of Comic Watch, and we're always looking for reviewers for the website. So if you're interested in writing reviews on comics, TV shows, films, anime, games, anything like that, those are the things we write reviews on. Or even maybe not reviews, but if you want to help out with previews and doing news and stuff like that, our team is very collaborative and very creative in coming up with ideas on like whatever people want to write about, as long as it fits into what we talk about. We want to make those things happen. So if you're interested in that, if you want to give a shot at writing reviews or writing articles for Comic Watch, I will put a link of that of an application to where you can apply in the show notes. So we're always looking for reviewers. So if you're interested, definitely fill that out or reach out to me and talk to me about it, and I can definitely answer any questions you have. And then to give everybody a preview of what's happening for our next episode, episode 101, I'm going to have a guest on the show from Mark Bell, who has his own comic publishing company called Plague Doctor Press. And so he'll be on the show next week, and we're going to be talking about that as well as a comic he has coming out. Excuse me. Molly just said that she's going to go make a dummy account to leave a 1-star review. I knew somebody was going to do that. It doesn't surprise me that Molly's the one that's going to do it too.
I just went and looked at the reviews. Did you know that somebody rated our show 6 out of 6 Infinity Stones once?
Yes. And the story behind that, so that's Isaac Edlund, and he is part of the Affinity Bros podcast.
Okay,
awesome. And that's actually their thing, is like they will rate and review things, and they do a 6 out of 6 Infinity Stones because they're 6 Infinity Stones. So,
man, I feel honored.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. It's again, like a lot of great things.
I was still on the show then when they left it.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to see that.
I was not very good about sharing out the reviews with you, to be honest, because I saw them come through, but I didn't think about like, oh, I should share this with Kevin. So I apologize for not.
I remember you sending me one at some point early on.
But I was not very good about like every time we got it. Sending it off to you. So that's what's going on next week. So let's get into the comics we're reading. For those who are listening right now live, if you want to share any comics that you're currently reading, please put that in the chat, and I will make sure to read that here in the live, and then I'll also be part of the podcast as well too. So this will be kind of a nice live interactive thing where if you want to share what you're reading, I will go ahead and read those off in the chat. But starting off, Kevin, I know you and I have talked about this. You are somebody that you don't have as much time as you like to read comics, so you're probably not reading anything currently, correct?
No, but I can tell you what the comics that I'm most excited
Yeah.
to finish because
From
I made them.
1982.
No. I made the mistake of reading stuff that you had like recommended a while back,
Oh, yeah.
and one of them was Human Target.
Yes.
And I loved the first volume.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to get the second one.
It
I
is
guess
so
it's,
good, man.
oh no, see, it's still, the hardcover doesn't come out until July. So I'm waiting on that one. And the other one was, what's is it Dark Knights of Steel?
Yes, that Tom
The
Taylor's writing. Yeah,
is that the one where that's like set in like Camelot
medieval.
or something?
Yeah, it's not Camelot, but it's set like in
Medieval times, yeah.
in the
So
Middle Ages.
that one had me hooked, and I read through the whole thing, and then I was like, "WTF, Sean?" Like it doesn't end. It's a cliffhanger, and
Well, and that one was like they had put out, I think, the first 6 or 7 issues month by month, and then there was a long pause before they put out the next one, and then I think there's like another like longer pause. So like I don't know what is going on with that exactly, but yeah, it was frustrating for me because I was really enjoying it, and then I think it was like a good 8 months before they released the next issue. But man, it is so good. Like I think it's on issue 10 now, if I remember correctly, and there's supposed to be 2 more. And I have no idea when they're supposed to be coming out. I haven't looked it up or anything.
and
But
the other thing is Berserker, the
yes,
Keanu Reeves thing. So I bought into the Kickstarter, and I've got like the first 2, like the third like trade is coming out soon.
yeah,
And they send like the PDFs and like the emails and stuff, and I'm so tempted to just like sit there on my lunch break and scroll.
yeah.
But then I'm like, don't do it, because you're gonna get to the end of the book, and then there's gonna be more that you'll have to wait on.
Yep.
And it's been a while since I've been on the show, but I just like to reiterate that I hate the serial nature of comics, because they make you wait.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point where the only show that in 2023, the only television show that I will watch the day of or day after and wait around for it is The Mandalorian. But everything else, I'm 2 years behind. I'm watching old stuff because
Yeah.
I know that there's bonus episodes out there.
I know and there's so much good stuff out there. It's finding the time to watch it, right? Like I absolutely love Star Wars Visions, and Visions 2 has come out. I haven't watched all of it through yet, mostly because my son's been wanting to watch it, and so I've been waiting to watch it with him whenever we get the chance to do that. So we only watched, I think, 2 of the 6 or 8 episodes that they have out. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much really good stuff out there. Have you watched the Harley Quinn animated show?
I watched the first 2 episodes of the Harley Quinn animated show, but it's a Kevin only show. So unless I'm awake in the middle of the night,
yeah,
I couldn't watch it. But I will say on the Star Wars front, it was a while back, maybe it's spring break or something. It wasn't too long ago that I came into the living room and Madden and Kathy, my wife, were watching Tales of the Jedi on Disney Plus, and they're like the little short stories that kind of fill in the gaps or whatnot.
Right.
And Kathy was really, really into it. Yeah. And I was like, you've never been more beautiful than you are right now. You sexy Star Wars nerd.
I've heard people talk about how it's a lot of fill-in stuff, especially for the Clone Wars and the Rebels.
Series. There's some deep cuts in there. There's she's getting the backstory and being like, oh, that makes more sense now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Another series that you need to check out, Kevin, because this is your favorite person of all time in the comics, is Rogue and Gambit.
Okay.
So this, I enjoy Rogue and Gambit as a hobby for characters, right? I enjoy them. I know you're in love with Rogue. I like watching them on screen and everything. I think they're very interesting. They're not my favorite, but it's not like I hate them like the way I hate Doctor Strange and Howard the Duck and all that. But this series is written by Stephanie Phillips, and I can't remember the artist right now. It escaped my head. I'm kicking myself in the butt for this, but the art is really good. I really enjoy the art. I think you would love this story because it has a lot of probably what you're looking for in a Rogue story.
Okay.
So Rogue and Gambit is married in this series, and
Okay.
do you know who Destiny Irene Adler is in the X-Men?
Sounds familiar.
I have never heard of this person until I started reading the what's it called? I think the Immortal X-Men. Oh no, the House of X Powers of 10 story. I think is the first time I read about her.
Okay.
And she's Mystique's wife. Okay, and she can like tell, she can see into the future, like all the different possibilities of the future and stuff like that. But she tells Rogue that she needs to help her by getting another X-Men Manifold that I've never heard of, but this character is really cool, to get him to help out with Krakoa. And so they go off on this mission to get him, and it's been just a really fun story. It's a lot of fun. It's very funny. There is a really like a romantic scene in there where they both lost their powers and they realize like what they could do now that they both lost their powers.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I'd love to do a podcast on
Uh-huh.
is like we could get a psychiatrist that knows comic books to like analyze like our fascinations with the characters that we love. Because like I
Yes.
could just see like Sigmund Freud being like, so tell me about your fascination with the lady that does not exist, but if she did, a single touch could kill you. Have you always wanted the forbidden fruit?
You know what's interesting that you bring that up? There's a podcast show that I find their style is really interesting, and they're a very popular one. Like they have a big following on social media and all that. But it's called the I'm going to butcher their name, but it's like the Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast.
I think I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and what they do is with every episode they kind of look at a comic book series through a specific like psychological lens. And so they did one on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and through the lens of the relationship between brothers and camaraderie through, I think, like some specific psychologist, something like that. But it's funny that you bring that up because that's the kind of thing that they would do, and it's a really well done show.
So, and I'll give you the flip side of that because let's put a pin in this and let's talk about it.
Yeah,
The other
definitely.
thing that I'm obsessed with is Superman,
Yes.
who is who is perfect in almost every single way and still struggles with the fact that he cannot be everywhere all the time
Mm-hmm.
and save everybody. And like bring the tissues because I'm probably gonna like get deep in my emotions and talk about why that moves me so much.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I just recently read for the show actually, based on someone's suggestion here, is World's Finest, Batman Superman World's Finest.
Okay.
It's currently written by Mark Waid and the art is by Dan Mora and it's still ongoing. But we read volume 1, which I think was like the first 6 issues. And what I found really interesting, first of all, Mark Waid's stories are really great. His Daredevil story is one of my favorites for a number of reasons. But one of the things that they really highlighted is there's that whole there's that conversation about like how because Superman's immortal, he's not like an interesting character because like he's pretty much unstoppable, right? Even though there's been ways to introduce that with the kryptonite and all that. Everyone says, you know, that's kind of an issue. Like he seems like he's the perfect person. But in this story, Mark Waid also points out about how 2 things. One, he is not immune to magic, so magic can still be kind of a weakness to him. If someone has that kind of power, they can still, you know, kind of be evenly matched with him. But the other thing that I didn't really think about until I read the story with Superman is that he is not as smart as Batman when it comes to like detective skills, right? Because there was a scene where he tells Supergirl to go, you know, take Robin, who was Damian Wayne, with him, and she's like, I can do this on my own, and he said, you need a great detective to go with you, kind of recognizing his limits of like, yes, we're powerful and we can, handle ourselves, But when it comes to these sort of things, like he knows his limitations, and one of his
Mm-hmm.
limitations is that he is not as good as doing these things as Batman or his son. And so I really love that, because I think that really opens up a whole conversation you can have about Superman that kind of gives you a different light of, like, he's not as powerful. Like, yes, he's invincible, but in these other things, like, he can still be debilitated, basically, if it's done right. So Kim from the ODPH podcast reminded me that the art for Rogue Gambit is Carlos Gomez. And then talking about the comics we're reading, Molly said that the last comic she read was a crossover of Superman and Silver Surfer by Perez and Lim. She said that was a cool meetup. I did not realize that they did a crossover of those two characters. I would not have expected Silver Surfer to be a crossover.
Yeah,
that is really interesting.
I'd have to go look back. I wonder how old that is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's
George Perez and Ron Lim. That's pushing it back a little bit.
It is, yeah. Okay, so here are the comics that I'm going to be picking up this week. So the first one is Batman the Brave and the Bold, which is this week is like the first issue that's coming out. I'll be honest, I don't know anything about this comic series. I just remember seeing the artwork that they posted about it on social media, and I was absolutely in love with it. And so I don't know what to expect from this series. So this is one of those, like, I'm going in blind and I'm kind of curious to see what it says. Molly said that the Superman Silver Surfer crossover was only 96.
Okay.
Yeah. Would you say only 96? Like, that's over 25 years ago as well.
I wonder if she can hear me. Does Superman have long hair? Does he have a mullet in it?
Was it Nicolas Cage?
He'd give it away. There was a stretch in the 90s where he had long hair.
Long hair, yeah, and it's always highlighted with the blue highlights as well. Not that the hair is highlighted, but the shading, that they do.
No, like that's the way that Wonder Woman's hair has always been depicted too. Like,
yeah. Another series I'm picking up this week, and Kevin, I think you'll like this one. It's called No One from Image Comics. Have you heard about this?
Sounds familiar.
So it's a brand new series from Kyle Higgins from the Black Market Narrative, and it's part of the Massiverse from Image Comics. So the Massiverse includes stories like Rogue Sun, Radiant Black. I think it's called Dead Unlucky or Unlucky Dead. I think it's Dead Unlucky. Infernal Girl Red. So it's part of this like overarching universe called the Massiverse from Image Comics, and No One is part of this. It is a fantastic read. I knew Ken was going to be excited about this because he's been really into this. It is a fantastic series. I think this is one that you should pick up at some point because it is a lot of fun. It's not necessarily a superhero comic, but it's a vigilante comic about. It takes place in Philadelphia, and it's this whole idea of accountability. Basically, what happens is that this person called No One is holding people in Philadelphia accountable. That's like, some of the elite that's like taking advantage of the systems and stuff like that.
Like, quote unquote, no one will do anything about it.
Yeah. He says,
he's like, fine, I'll be no one.
One of the taglines, he says that no one is above the law and I am no one.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's a really clever way of saying that. But what happens is like somebody,
no one loves your mother and I'm no one.
And I am no one. But what's really interesting is that, what ends up happening in this story is that somebody ends up taking it and try to hold these people accountable because like nothing ever ended up happening to like a couple of them or whatever, right? Like I think the first two, they ended up, being held accountable. Then the other two, didn't. And so somebody takes a little too far and ends up killing these people. And so they're called accountability murders. And so it's a hero kind of comic, but it's more vigilante. And what's really cool about this is that it kind of goes beyond the comic book, that there is a podcast that goes along with it. And it's not a podcast talking about No One, but it's a podcast that's part of the story. That's an audio drama. So two of the characters that's in No One series is actually voiced by Rachel Lee Cook, who is somebody from our childhood, right? That we absolutely love.
She'll be on the list. Was she great or were we?
And Patton Oswalt is on there as well too. And so I really love the idea that they're having like an accompanying podcast that goes with it, and it actually tells you more details about the story that's not in the comic. So I just absolutely love this series. I think it's really brilliant what they're doing. They're kind of pushing the idea of comics in that way. And then the last comic that I'm pulling this week that I'm going to be reading is the Spider-Man 2099 Dark Genesis series. Have you heard about this one?
Mm-mm.
So this is a little bit different where they're releasing an issue week by week instead of month by month. So this upcoming week is going to be issue number 3. Issue number 2 just came out, and issue number 1 came out last week. But Spider-Man 2099, the only reason why I'm getting this is because Daredevil 2099 is supposed to be showing up in this. That's the only reason why I'm getting it. That's the only reason why I'm reading it. So far, it's not bad.
Because you've been waiting patiently for him to make his triumphant return.
I know, because it's just been the one issue, and I thought it was such a great story, and I'm bummed out that they never really finished it. I don't think it's going to be the same Daredevil, which is disappointing, but I'm going to read it and see what happens. But I would love for them to revisit Daredevil 2099 with Sam Fisk, who plays Daredevil, who is the Daredevil character in that story. I would love for them to do like just even a limited series of just kind of going back to that story. I would absolutely love that. All right, so those are the comics that we're reading. Let me see here. Molly said about Superman, nope, short hair, no mullet man. LOL. And Ken confirmed. He said it's called the Dead Lucky, not the Unlucky Dead or the Lucky Undead or whatever. I kept butchering it, but the Dead Lucky is what it was called in part of the Massiverse. So, thank you everybody for chiming in and talking about that. So let's go ahead and talk about and wrap up this episode with the giveaway that we have been talking about and promoting. And so for everybody who are listening in or watching the live, I'm going to play the giveaway video just to kind of remind everybody what's going to be included in this giveaway for our winner tonight. So here it is. Is going to hit a huge milestone this year. We will be recording our 100th episode, and to celebrate, we are having a giveaway. We're going to be giving away this Secret Wars themed short box. We're also including a signed photograph of me and Kevin saying thank you to our most mediocre fan, and it's signed by Kevin and signed by me. Now, Kevin's signature is actually signed by me because I'm not sending this photo over to Texas just for him to sign it. A Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Funko Pop, a Golden Captain America Funko Pop donated by Comic Book University, a huge stack of comic books and a secret poster, an empty bottle of a drink that I had on the first recording of the Captioned Life, a Daredevil number 189 issue that is signed by Klaus Janson, a reversible Daredevil and Punisher beanie that you usually see me wear on TikTok, one Lego piece, a Nerd Initiative beanie, a 3D printed Doctor Strange portal disc that Nerd Initiative gave me because they thought it would be funny since I don't like Doctor Strange. You can have it. And there may be some other goodies and surprises that we'll put in there between now and then. So if you want to enter for a chance to win our giveaway, there's actually a number of ways that you can do this, and you can have multiple entries. You have to have all your entries in by Thursday night, May 11th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we will announce the winner on our live show for our 100th episode recording on Friday night, May 12th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you for all the support that you've all given us over the few years, and we hope that we can continue on for another 100 episodes. All right, so that is the giveaway that we're having. And what's funny is in the giveaway, talk about the bottle that I had of the first drink that I've had when we were doing the first episode of the Captioned Life. It was like a lemonade bottle that I put in there. I know a lot of people mentioned that. A lot of people talk about the one Lego piece that I put in there, and Molly just put in the chat that she needs that Lego piece.
She's like Rocket Raccoon. I'm going to get that arm.
Yeah. Exactly. So thank you, everybody. Before we pick our winner, again, thank you for everybody for the support. This has just been a blast. Kevin, have we ever talked about or even thought about what was going to be like hitting our 100th episode for the show?
No, I'm still in kind of awe that we've done 100 episodes. Like
Yeah.
that's something that we created has had this kind of longevity.
Yeah, it's. Uh, I, I mean, I'm overwhelmed with the fact that we've lasted this long. That we're still doing a lot of fun stuff with this show. That it's evolved into a lot of different things over the years. I think it's just been a lot of fun, not just for us, but for everybody that listens and watches the show. Whether it's through the podcast, through YouTube, whether it's through TikTok on social media or anything like that. I feel like we've been doing a lot of fun things for people, and so I just appreciate everybody's support since the beginning, and new followers and new listeners, and we hope to do another 100 episodes. And so when we get to 200, we have to think of something, bigger to do. Maybe we'll do like a live recording somewhere like in person or something like that. Maybe like something fun or something big for the 200th episode if we make it to that. So, so for our giveaway, let's go ahead and, as people can see in the YouTube live, we have a click to spinner website, which I think this is the same one you used before, Kevin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and click to see who is going to be our winner for the giveaway. So here it is spinning, and let's see who it lands on. Mr. Marvel 613 is our winner. Congratulations. That is awesome. So thank you for everybody who entered into the giveaway. And that wraps up our 100th episode. Kevin, is there anything you want to say before we wrap everything up and let everybody go?
No, man. I really enjoyed coming back, and I can't wait to do it again. I think you give me 2 weeks to get school out, and we'll meet up for the Superman episode, and I'll have a bunch of ideas for other places we can go after that.
Yes, we need to do that, definitely. So it's been a blast doing the show with you. It's been a blast doing the show and having so many people, supporting us, listening in, and it's just, like I said before, we do this for fun. We do this as a hobby. When we look at the numbers, we're really happy with the numbers. I know, success is measured differently for so many people. And for me, this has been very successful for a number of things. And I think that, just doing this live show tonight has been just a phenomenal success for our show that we got to this point. Not only are we doing 100 episodes, but, we're doing live. We have people interacting with us in the chat. Ken just said, congrats, guys. Thank you very much. It's just been a phenomenal ride, and I just don't see us slowing down on this because you and I both love doing this sort of thing. And I just can't say enough great things. So with that being said, thank you all for coming to the live show. Thank you for celebrating 100 episodes, and here's to us making it to 200 episodes, hopefully in the next few years. So thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your night.
Oh.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, how funny would it be, like, right when the show ends, there's a little graphic, like a freeze frame graphic that said the Captioned Life was immediately canceled later that week.
No, we didn't make it to 101, so my bad. Awesome. Well, thank you very much.